Your local gun store probably can't get half the Glock models they could order 6 months ago, and there's a very specific reason why that should make you pay attention right now. Austrian engineers don't just randomly decide to stop making things that sell, especially when those things have been printing money for decades. But something unprecedented just happened in Gaston Glock's empire, and it's pointing toward the biggest shakeup in striker-fired pistol design we've seen since Glock invented the category. The breadcrumbs are everywhere if you know where to look, and what they're spelling out is going to change how you think about buying your next carry gun. Now, before you start panicking about your Gen 5 becoming obsolete, let me break down what's really going on here, because the signs have been hiding in plain sight for years. Between leaked patents, mysterious test mules showing up in law enforcement hands, and now this massive product line slash and burn, we're looking at the most significant evolution in Glock's DNA since they started putting serial numbers on polymer frames. The first red flag should have been when 357 SIG and 45 gap started disappearing from official product pages. You might think those calibers were dying anyway, but Glock doesn't usually abandon entire cartridge families unless they're planning something that makes supporting them impossible. Then came the Gen 4 discontinuations, which seemed normal enough until you realized they were also killing off specific Gen 5 configurations that were selling just fine. What really caught my attention was stumbling across some Reddit discussions where users were digging through patent databases and finding stuff that Glock Technology GmbH filed starting back in 2020. These weren't your typical new grip texture patents either. We're talking about fundamental architectural changes that would require completely rethinking how a Glock goes together. Patent number 12,215,944 from February shows a drop-in trigger assembly system that looks nothing like the current trigger housing design. Instead of individual parts floating around in the frame, everything's contained in one module that slides in and pins into place. Think of it like an AR-15 fire control group, but designed specifically for a striker-fired pistol. This isn't just about making manufacturing easier, it's about creating a platform where you can swap trigger characteristics without sending your gun to a smith. But that's not even the most interesting part. Patent 12,264,888 from April tackles something Glock users have been complaining about for decades: that stupid trigger press required for takedown. You know the drill. Clear the gun, press the trigger, pull the tabs, slide comes off. Except when people forget to clear the gun first, and suddenly you've got a negligent discharge during routine maintenance. The new system uses a spring-loaded lever behind the trigger axis that physically blocks the striker during disassembly. No more trigger press, no more accidents, and probably compliance with some safety standards that are giving procurement officers headaches. Here's where things get really spicy, though. The modular frame patent shows Glock moving toward a half-grip system where the upper portion containing the rails and fire control stays fixed, while the lower grip shell becomes swappable. You could theoretically run a full-size frame at the range for maximum capacity and controllability, then swap to a compact grip shell for concealed carry without changing anything else about the gun. Same trigger feel, same zero on your optic, same muscle memory. Just different ergonomics for different missions. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. A seam in the middle of the frame sounds like a failure point waiting to happen. But looking at the patent drawings, they're using tongue-and-groove rails with metal reinforcement pins, similar to what you see in quality rifle chassis systems. This isn't some cheap, snap-together toy design. They're engineering this thing to handle the same abuse current Glocks take while adding functionality that competitor platforms like the P320 have been bragging about for years. The optic situation is another major shift that's been brewing quietly. Glock's modular optic system always felt like an afterthought. Plates that created stack height, screws that worked loose, tolerances that let optics shift around. Meanwhile, Springfield's Echelon and Ruger's RXM started shipping with direct mount slides that put dots closer to bore axis with rock-solid mounting. Glock's answer appears to be adopting the COA cut system that Aimpoint developed. Instead of plates and adapters, the mounting points get machined directly into the slide. Zero play, minimal height over bore, and probably adapters available for all the major optic manufacturers. Glock filed these patents between 2020 and 2022, which puts us right in that sweet spot where prototype testing turns into production planning. Add in the reports of mysterious test guns showing up in law enforcement evaluations, and you start getting a picture of a company that's been working on this transition for years while keeping their cards close to their chest. The market timing makes perfect sense, too. Every major manufacturer has been pushing modular platforms, factory performance triggers, and better optics integration. Glock's been getting heat for sticking with the same basic design language they've used since the 1980s. Sure, it works, but "it works" doesn't cut it anymore when buyers can get a P320 with a flat trigger and direct optic mount for similar money. So where does this leave current Glock owners? Should you panic sell your Gen 5 and start saving for Gen 6? Should you buy up discontinued models while they're still available? The honest answer depends on what you actually need from your pistol and how much the potential new features matter to your specific use case. If you're running a bone stock Gen 5 for home defense and it goes bang every time you pull the trigger, nothing about Gen 6 invalidates that gun. But if you've been wanting better optics mounting, safer takedown procedures, or the ability to resize your grip without buying multiple guns, then yeah, Generation 6 might be worth the wait. The pricing question is where things get complicated, and honestly, it's probably the biggest factor that'll determine whether Gen 6 succeeds or becomes another expensive experiment that fades away. Current Gen 5s already pushed Glock into premium territory compared to budget alternatives flooding the market. When you can pick up a decent striker-fired pistol for under $400, asking $600 or $700 for a Glock requires justification beyond just brand recognition. If the modular frame system works as advertised, Glock could justify higher pricing by positioning it as buying multiple guns in one package. Instead of owning separate compact and full-size pistols, you'd have one serialized fire control unit with swappable grip shells. That's a compelling value proposition for people who actually need that flexibility, but it's also a harder sell to casual buyers who just want a reliable nightstand gun. The trigger module system opens up some interesting possibilities that could change how Glock approaches product tiers. Right now, if you want a better trigger, you're either buying aftermarket parts or paying someone to install them. With a drop-in cassette system, Glock could offer factory performance packages right from the dealer. Basic models ship with standard triggers, while premium versions get aluminum shoes, refined geometry, and whatever other enhancements they can engineer into the module without compromising reliability. The timing for an official announcement keeps shifting based on different sources, but the smart money seems to be on the NRA annual meeting rather than SHOT Show. SHOT's become a circus where every manufacturer tries to outshout each other with incremental updates and marketing gimmicks. The NRA meeting tends to be more focused on serious product launches that actually matter to end users rather than just industry insiders looking for content to fill their social media feeds. Looking at Glock's historical release pattern, they've maintained roughly 7 to 8 years between major generation updates. Gen 4 dropped in 2010, Gen 5 came in 2017, which puts us right in the window for Gen 6 to appear. The patent filing timeline supports this too. Major design changes filed in 2020 and 2021 would need several years of development and testing before reaching production. What's really interesting is how law enforcement adoption might drive the initial rollout. Agencies have been pushing for safer takedown procedures after too many training incidents involving trigger press disassembly. They also want modular platforms that can accommodate different officer hand sizes without maintaining separate inventories of multiple frame sizes. If Gen 6 delivers on both fronts, it could capture a significant chunk of the duty market right out of the gate. The collector angle adds another wrinkle to the whole situation. Those discontinued 45 gap and 357 SIG models are already commanding premium prices among people who understand they're watching the end of an era. Meanwhile, police trade-in Gen 4s are selling for bargain prices because everyone assumes they'll become obsolete once Gen 6 hits the streets. For most shooters, the practical question comes down to whether the new features solve real problems or just add complexity. The modular frame sounds cool until you consider that most people buy one gun and stick with it rather than constantly swapping configurations. The safer takedown system addresses a legitimate safety concern, but current disassembly procedures work fine if you follow basic safety rules. The improved optics mounting is probably the most universally beneficial change, since everyone's moving toward red dots anyway. Competition shooters might find the most value in a drop-in trigger system that allows easy customization without voiding warranties or creating legal complications in jurisdictions with trigger modification restrictions. Being able to swap between carry-appropriate and competition-tuned trigger modules on the same frame could eliminate the need for separate guns in different categories. One factor that could make or break Gen 6 adoption is parts availability and aftermarket support. Current Glocks benefit from decades of third-party development, creating everything from triggers to barrels to specialty frames. If Gen 6 uses completely different architecture, all that aftermarket support becomes worthless overnight. Glock would need to ensure either backward compatibility or rapid development of new aftermarket options to avoid alienating the modification community. The international market adds complexity too. Different countries have varying regulations about modular firearms, takedown procedures, and capacity restrictions. A design that works perfectly for the American market might create compliance headaches in Europe or other regions where Glock has significant sales. This could explain why the rollout might be staggered rather than simultaneous across all markets. So is Gen 6 worth buying when it becomes available? For early adopters who value having the latest technology and can justify the premium pricing, probably yes. The combination of safer operation, better optics integration, and modular flexibility addresses real limitations of current Glocks. For budget-conscious buyers or people satisfied with their current guns, waiting for prices to stabilize and aftermarket support to develop makes more sense. The smart play might be watching for Gen 5 fire sales once Gen 6 gets officially announced. Used market prices always crater when new generations launch, creating opportunities to pick up proven designs at discount prices. Unless you specifically need the new features, a discounted Gen 5 might deliver better value than a full-price Gen 6. Either way, Glock's finally making moves that suggest they understand the market has evolved beyond simple reliability. Whether that evolution results in better guns or just more expensive ones remains to be seen. If you found this breakdown helpful, smash that like button and subscribe for more firearms industry analysis. What features are you most excited about in potential Gen 6? And would you upgrade from your current carry gun? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's keep the conversation going.